If you like your video games filled with cigarette advertisements, F1 Pilot is the game for you. Though the text does get mangled on the cars at some points in a way that feels very modern. F1 Pilot is the PC Engine's first F1 racing game, a genre that's going to be weirdly busy. There seems to have been a bit of an F1 boom in Japan in the late 80s and early 90s, which would be right when the PC Engine was the most popular, and with that came a real flood of F1 games. The phenomenon seems to have died out around the mid-90s, and the game releases went back to just a couple a year instead of a dozen. F1 Pilot is the first game on the PC Engine by Pack-In Video, a name that sends shivers down the spine of Japanese game collectors everywhere. As a publisher, they specialized in picking up licenses and making some awful games based on them. I know Pack-In Video has used development houses in other games, but they also seem to have had their own in-house group, and as far as I have been able to determine, F1 Pilot was made internally by them. Not that that ever really made a quality difference when it came to Pack-In Video. Before I go any further, no, I don't know what the subtitle, "Your King of Kings," means. As far as I can tell, King of Kings isn't a phrase that's ever been associated with F1 racing. So perhaps Pack-In Video has decided that beating this game is how you determine who's the Messiah. Something that you might have spotted if you have a long memory is that we've seen the car on the front package for F1 Pilot before. It's the car driven by Japan's most successful F1 driver, Nakajima Satoru. And by most successful, I mean he seemed to have had an okay mid-level career. Of course, not being a superstar driver didn't prevent him from getting licensed for video games, and the first of those was Nakajima Satoru F1 Hero, which was released on the Famicom about 3 months before this game, and featured Satoru's car on the box. So Nakajima Satoru F1 Hero had the name and the driver, but F1 Pilot, for some reason, has the car. When you start the game, you pick out which racing team you belong to. Now you'll note for all of them, the cars are palette-swapped versions of Satoru's car. Okay, the camel logo on the spoiler is a bit mangled, but it's still really obvious. The cars are rated on how they perform on wet tracks, dry tracks, how quickly the pit team works, and how durable the vehicle is. All of the racing teams have names that are slightly off from real-world racing teams. So stuff like Ferrari instead of Ferrari. With a team picked out, it's time to race. 8 real-world F1 tracks are represented in F1 Pilot, and you play through each of these in order, starting with Brazil. First you run a qualifying lap, then you do a 5-lap race. Place well in that 5 laps, and you go on to the next track. Otherwise, you repeat the same course again. To help you with this, the manual for F1 Pilot contains detailed breakdowns of the courses, including advice on how you should take each corner. And that's good, because in the game itself, there's absolutely nothing to help you. There's no signpost warning you that something's coming up, no indicators of a curve. The curve just appears, and hopefully you reacted in time. The only way that you can really play F1 Pilot is to memorize the courses. It gets especially bad when the corner changes intensity. You could have your car under control in the curve, no problem, and then suddenly with no warning zoom off to one side because the curve changed. But F1 Pilot only has one graphic for curves, so there's no visual cue for it. Now fortunately for me, I didn't have to play the Brazil course for hours until I finally placed. You can press button 2 on the course screen, and then choose to practice any track, doing just 1 lap. But the visual problems are the same for all courses. This is a game that is punishingly hard, and not for fun reasons. On the 5-lap race, you'll probably need to pit at some point, as wear on the machine will reduce your top speed and traction. You do that by watching for the pit sign, braking to a complete stop, and then pressing the select button. Then you wait out your pit time, and can start driving again. You've probably noticed that you've got wing mirrors, showing you cars that you've passed and people coming up behind you, but it winds up being a lot less effective than you might think. You have to be going amazingly slow for them to pass you, so those rear views really don't do anything at all for you in this game. If you manage to beat all 8 races, you're declared King of Kings, and that's it, game over. There's no password to save your progress or anything like that, so you'll have to race for about an hour and a half in order to beat the game. 6 total laps per track, an average of 2 minutes per lap, some are a bit faster, some are a bit slower. Yeah, about an hour and a half. F1 Pilot has a really bad reputation in Japan. I found multiple people calling it the worst game on the PC Engine. Now, I'm not willing to go that far, just because I haven't played all the PC Engine games yet, and I honestly wouldn't be shocked if there's something even worse. But F1 Pilot is impressively bad. Not, I don't care for this bad. It's, why would you ever play this bad? I realize that from the perspective of a player decades later, a lot of these 8-bit racing games look the same, but there really is significant differences among them. And F1 Pilot is pretty much the bottom of the barrel. I like the Famicom F1 racing games from this period better than it, and I didn't even like those very much. And Pack-In Video had the gall to charge 1,000 yen more for it than the standard PC Engine game. I can understand why Japanese kids in 1989 were furious about this one. You can, and should, play just about anything else. F1 Pilot is a real car crash.